Family is supposed to protect you. Mine sold me out. And 15 years later, they came back for my money. My wealthy uncle left me everything: a large mansion and $5 million. My parents, who abandoned me 15 years ago, suddenly appeared at the will reading. We're your guardians, they smiled. But when my lawyer walked in, their faces turned pale. Well, here we go. I'm sitting here in my uncle's house, trying to process everything that happened just 2 days ago. The funeral already feels like a blur, but I keep thinking about how I got here in the first place. I guess I should start from the beginning, 15 years ago, when my whole world changed. My name's Damian Crowell, and I'm 25 now. But when I was 10, I lived with my parents and 2 older brothers in Kentucky. My brothers, Nicholas and Darren, were 16 and 15 back then. And honestly, they were pretty much the center of my parents' universe. Mom and Dad were always driving them to basketball practice, paying for their equipment, going to their games. They had this whole routine where everything revolved around the boys. Don't get me wrong, my parents weren't abusive or anything. They fed me, made sure I got to school, bought me clothes when I needed them. But it was like I was just there, you know? Like background noise in their real lives. While they were cheering at Nicholas games or helping Darren with his college prep stuff, I was usually just sitting in my room reading or watching TV alone. But I didn't really understand how bad things were until that night when I was 10. I couldn't sleep because it was really hot. So, I went downstairs to get some water. That's when I heard Mom and Dad talking in the living room. They were speaking quietly, but I could hear them from the hallway. "We can't keep going like this, Charles," Mom was saying. "The mortgage payments are killing us, and with your job situation getting worse." "I know, Iris. I know." Dad sounded really stressed. 3 kids is just too much right now. We can barely afford Nicholas and Darren's sports fees, and there's no way we can pay for college for all 3 of them. "We need to do something," Mom said. "We need to figure out a solution." "What are you thinking?" Dad asked. "Well, your brother Thaddeus has that big house in Maine. He's been alone since his divorce, and he always asks about the kids when he calls. Maybe." I didn't really understand what they were talking about. I mean, I knew we didn't have a lot of money compared to some of my classmates' families, but I didn't know things were that bad. And I had never even met Uncle Thaddeus. Dad barely talked about him, except to mention that he lived far away and worked for some big company. I went back to my room that night and didn't think much more about it. Kids that age don't really process conversations like that properly. I figured they were just worried about bills like all adults seem to be. About a month later, school ended for summer vacation. I was excited because I thought maybe we'd do something fun as a family, but instead Mom and Dad told me we were going on a road trip to Maine to visit Dad's brother. The drive felt endless. Nicholas and Darren got to stay home because they had summer basketball camp, which I thought was unfair. But I was also kind of curious, excited even to finally meet this mysterious uncle and see a new place. When we pulled up to Uncle Thaddeus' house, my jaw nearly dropped. It was massive, like something out of a movie, with a huge front yard and tall white columns holding up the porch. Uncle Thaddeus came out to greet us, and he was nothing like I expected. He was taller than Dad, with gray hair neatly combed back. He wore a crisp white shirt tucked into dark slacks, looking like he had just walked out of a business meeting. "So this is Damian," he said, looking down at me with sharp blue eyes. But then he smiled, and his whole face softened. "Hello, young man. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a very long time." At first, he seemed strict, even intimidating, but there was a warmth in his expression, like he was really seeing me, not just glancing over me the way my parents often did. Dad and Mom carried in my small suitcases, and soon we were sitting in an elegant living room while Thaddeus served us iced tea. The adults talked about boring things while I looked around, wide-eyed, at the expensive furniture, polished wood, and paintings on the walls. Everything looked spotless and valuable. After about an hour, Dad stood up and stretched. "Well, we should get going. It's a long drive back." I jumped up, too. Okay, let me get my stuff. But then Dad and Mom exchanged this strange look, and Mom cleared her throat. Actually, honey, you're going to stay here with Uncle Thaddeus for a while. How long? I asked, my stomach tightening. Well, see, Dad said, not quite meeting my eyes. You'll have fun here. Thaddeus has cable TV and a big backyard. I felt panic creeping in. But when are you coming back? Soon, Mom said quickly. Well, call you. They hugged me goodbye, but it felt rushed, hollow. As they walked toward the door, I ran after them. Wait, when exactly are you coming back? What about school in the fall? Well, figure it out, Dad called over his shoulder. Be good for your uncle. And then they were gone. I stood in the doorway, staring at the car as it drove off, feeling more confused than scared at first. Uncle Thaddeus placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Come on, Damien. Let me show you to your room. The room he gave me was bigger than my entire room back home. It had a canopy bed, its own bathroom, and enormous windows that looked out over a backyard complete with a swimming pool and garden. Under normal circumstances, I would have been thrilled. This is really nice, I told him. I'm glad you like it, he replied. Tomorrow we'll go shopping for anything you need to make it feel more like home. That first week was actually pretty fun. Thaddeus took time off work to spend with me. We went shopping, saw a movie, and he even showed me how to use his fancy computer. He asked me about school, my friends, what I liked to do. And he really listened, asked follow-up questions. That was new for me. But as the days went on, I started missing my family. Even though they hadn't paid me much attention, they were still my parents and brothers. I kept asking Uncle Thaddeus if Mom and Dad had called. Not yet, Damien. I'm sure they will soon. But they didn't call. Not that week. Not the next week either. By the time a month had passed, I was really starting to worry. School was supposed to start soon back in Kentucky. One morning, I finally said what had been gnawing at me for weeks. Uncle Thaddeus, I think I need to go home soon. School starts in 2 weeks. He set down his coffee cup and looked at me seriously. Damien, we need to have a talk. My heart thumped. Are Mom and Dad coming to get me soon? I asked, even though deep down I already knew the answer wasn't going to be what I wanted to hear. He took a deep breath. No, son. They're not coming back. Your parents have decided that they can't take care of you anymore. They've officially given up their parental rights. I've adopted you. That means I'm your legal guardian now. You're going to live with me permanently. The words didn't make sense at first. I waited for him to laugh and say it was a bad joke, or to tell me there'd been some mistake. But he just sat there, looking sad but resolute. The tears came then. Not angry tears, but the deep, painful kind that steal your breath. Everything I thought I knew about my life was collapsing. Even though my parents had never given me much attention, they were still supposed to be my parents. They weren't supposed to just give me away. What about Nicholas and Darren? Did they give them away too? No. They kept your brothers. That hurt worse than anything. They had kept Nicholas and Darren, but not me. I wasn't worth keeping. I cried for 3 days straight. Thaddeus was patient through all of it. He brought me food and tissues, sat with me when I needed someone there. He didn't try to tell me it was all going to be fine, or that my parents had made the right choice. He just let me be sad. On the 4th day, I woke up with a strange clarity. If I was going to live here now, I could either spend the rest of my life waiting for people who didn't want me, or I could try to build something new with the one person who did. Uncle Thaddeus, I said that morning at breakfast, I don't want to think about them anymore. If they don't want me, then I don't want them either. And that's how my new life began. Uncle Thaddeus enrolled me in the local school, and to my surprise, I liked it better than my old one. The classes were smaller, and the teachers paid more attention to each student. I became friends with a boy named Evan who lived just down the street. Life with Thaddeus was nothing like life with my parents. When I came home from school, he actually wanted to hear about my day. He helped me with homework, explained things when I didn't understand. He came to school events, parent-teacher conferences, and even bought me books not just for birthdays or Christmas, but because he noticed I liked reading. His job fascinated me too. He worked as a senior financial consultant for a big company, and sometimes he explained what he did. He was smart with money and taught me how to save my allowance, why budgeting mattered, and how to understand the real cost of things. I was experiencing the rich dad, poor dad scenario described in Robert Kiyosaki's book. He conveyed the mindset of wealthy people by explaining taxes in a very simple way. He explained that time is more valuable than money, and that while poor people prioritize money, rich people build systems to save time. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," we should always ask, "How can I solve this?" This was very interesting. He was also my mentor. The years flew by. I got good grades, played soccer for a while, and even took piano lessons. Thaddeus and I developed this comfortable routine: we'd cook dinner together, then watch old movies on weekends. He told me stories about when Dad was young, though he never spoke much about him as an adult. When I turned 14, he asked me something unexpected. "Damien, would you like to visit your parents and brothers? I could arrange it if you want." I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. No. They never called or wrote or asked how I was doing. Why would I want to see them now? "Sometimes people change," he said gently. "Maybe they regret their decision. If they regretted it, they would have tried to contact me by now." "It's been 6 years, Uncle." 6 years, and not even a birthday card." He nodded slowly. "I think you're right. But I wanted you to know the option was there." That was the last time we talked about them for a long while. Life was good with Thaddeus. He was strict about some things like grades and chores, but he was fair and he cared about what I thought and felt. When I turned 16, everything changed again, but this time, it was Uncle Thaddeus who got sick. He started feeling exhausted all the time and lost weight quickly. At first, he thought it was just stress from work. But when he finally went to the doctor, they found cancer. I'll never forget the day he came home from the test results. He sat me down in the same spot where he had once told me the truth about my parents. "I have some bad news, Damien. I have cancer. And it's serious." It felt like the world collapsed around me. "Are you going to die?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "But I'm going to fight it as hard as I can. I'll quit my job so I can focus on getting better." "What about money? What about the house?" "Don't worry about it, money is something I took care of a long time ago. Thanks to the assets I've built, my passive income will remain quite high and won't be a problem for us." The next 2 years were the hardest of my life. Thaddeus went through chemotherapy and radiation. Sometimes he felt well enough that we could still do normal things. But other times, he was so sick he could barely get out of bed. I learned how to cook real meals, take care of the house, drive him to appointments as soon as I got my license at 16. The cancer went away for a while when I was 17, and we both thought maybe we'd beaten it. But it came back, worse than before, right around my 18th birthday. That year, my birthday was just me and Thaddeus at home. He was too weak to go anywhere, but he still managed to make me a cake. He gave me a beautiful gold watch that had belonged to his father. "I'm proud of the man you're becoming, Damien," he told me that day. "You're strong, smart, and kind. I know you're going to do great things." 2 months later, I graduated high school. Thaddeus was in the hospital and couldn't come, so Evan's mom filmed the whole ceremony for him. We set up a video call so he could watch me walk across the stage. He cried watching, but he looked so proud. A month after that, he passed away. I was at the hospital with him when it happened. He just closed his eyes and didn't wake up. He was only 53 years old. After Uncle Thaddeus died, I felt completely lost. I was 18 and suddenly alone in this massive house with no idea what to do next. Luckily, Thaddeus' best friend, Carol Whitmore, stepped in to help with the funeral arrangements. She had been close to him since college and knew how much I meant to him. Carol called all of Thaddeus' friends and colleagues to let them know about the funeral. Then she said she needed to call my father, since he was Thaddeus' only living sibling besides me. "Do you want to call him, or should I?" she asked gently. "You do it, please. I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. This part might sound chilling to you, it was to me." Carol put the call on speaker so I could hear. The phone rang several times before Dad finally picked up. "Hello? Hi, this is Carol Whitmore. I'm calling about your brother Thaddeus. I'm afraid I have some bad news. He passed away yesterday." There was silence for a long moment. Then Dad said flatly, "Oh. I see. The funeral is this Saturday at 2 o'clock at St. Mary's Church in Portland. I can text you the address." "Well, that's unfortunate timing," Dad muttered. "My son Darren just got promoted at his job, and we're throwing a big celebration party for him on Saturday. The whole family's coming. We've already paid for the catering." I stared at the phone, stunned. Carol's face went pale with shock. "I'm sorry," she said sharply. "Did you just say you can't attend your own brother's funeral because of a party? Look, it's not just a party. This is a big deal for Darren. He's worked really hard for this promotion, and we've been planning the celebration for weeks. Thaddeus would understand. Family comes first." Carol's voice turned icy. "Thaddeus was your family, too." "Of course he was," Dad said quickly. "But he's gone now. The living have to come first. Besides, Damien is there to handle things, right? He's an adult now." Carol hung up without another word. She turned to me with eyes full of anger and pity. To be honest, I wasn't surprised. Yes, my blood ran cold and I was disappointed, perhaps, but I wasn't surprised. Because that was exactly how they behaved. The funeral itself was beautiful. Around 50 people came, mostly Thaddeus' co-workers and church friends. Carol gave a moving speech about what a wonderful man he was and how much he had loved me. I managed to give my own speech without breaking down completely. After everyone left, I went back to the house alone. It felt unbearably quiet without him. I spent the next 2 days wandering aimlessly, trying to figure out what to do. Should I sell the house? Go to college? Get a job? Thaddeus and I had talked about college, but never about the logistics. On the third day after the funeral, there was a knock at the door. When I looked through the peephole, my heart nearly stopped. It was my parents and both my brothers standing on the porch, like they belonged there. I opened the door slowly. "Hi, Damien," Mom said softly. "Oh, sweetheart." She rushed forward to hug me, but I stepped back. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Dad pushed past me into the house like he owned the place. "We came to see how you're doing, of course. We're so sorry for your loss." Nicholas and Darren followed, glancing around with these greedy eyes, as if they were inspecting the house for its value. "Nice place," Darren said, running his hand along the mantelpiece. "Really nice." "We're here to support you," Mom added, settling onto the couch like she planned to stay. "You shouldn't be alone at a time like this." I stayed standing by the door. "Where were you 3 days ago, at the actual funeral? You know, when I actually needed support?" Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, honey, you know we had Darren's party. It was already planned, all the relatives were coming. We couldn't cancel something like that. But we're here now, and that's what matters. We want to take care of you." I laughed bitterly. "Take care of me? Where have you been for the last 15 years? I wish you hadn't acted so soon. You should have waited until I was 45 to look after me." "That's different," Mom said quickly. "You were living with Thaddeus. He took good care of you. But now that he's gone, you need your real family. He was my real family. Nicholas finally spoke up. Look, we get that you're upset, but you're being dramatic. We're here because you inherited all this. He gestured at the house. Mom and Dad are just worried about you handling all this responsibility alone. What responsibility? I shot back. Darren grinned. Come on, Damien. This house has to be worth at least $1 million, maybe more. Plus, whatever money Uncle left you. That's a lot for someone your age to handle. And just like that, the truth was out. Dad tried to put on a serious, fatherly expression. As Thaddeus' brother, I'm his rightful heir. It's only fair I inherit at least half of his estate. He left everything to me in his will, I said flatly. A will can be contested, Dad replied. Especially when it leaves everything to someone so young. You're not equipped to manage this kind of wealth and property. Mom nodded firmly. That's why we're here, sweetie. As your parents, we're your legal guardians. That means we can help you manage your inheritance responsibly. They were all staring at me with fake concern, but their greed was obvious. Get out, I said quietly. Right now. Damien, don't be ridiculous, Mom said. We're not leaving. You need us. Nicholas and Darren exchanged smug looks and started walking toward the stairs. Well, just pick out some rooms while you guys talk, Nicholas said casually. That's when I knew I needed backup. I rushed to my room and grabbed the business card Uncle Thaddeus' lawyer had given me at the funeral. Harvey Kessler. He had told me, call me if you ever need anything. And I definitely needed something now. I dialed the number with trembling hands. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Kessler, this is Damien. My parents showed up at the house. They're acting like they own it and they want leave. It'll be right there, he said firmly. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. I'll handle it. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I rushed to answer it before my family could. Harvey Kessler stood there, a tall, serious man in his 50s who had handled all of Uncle Thaddeus' affairs. Are you all right, Damien? He asked quietly. I think so. They're in the kitchen. Eating our food. We walked in together. My family looked up from the sandwiches they were making. They had completely made themselves at home, using Thaddeus' good plates as if they owned the place. Good afternoon, Kessler said, setting his briefcase on the counter. I'm Harvey Kessler, Mr. Crowell's attorney. Damien called me because he's having some issues with uninvited guests. Dad stood up straight, trying to look important. I'm Charles Crowell. Thaddeus was my brother. We're not uninvited, we're Damien's parents, his real family. Family? Kessler raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice of words. Mom jumped in quickly. Damien may be 25, but he's still too young to handle all of this alone. Look at the size of this estate, the house, the money. It's overwhelming. He needs his real family to guide him. Kessler actually chuckled. Too young at 25? That argument doesn't hold water. Damien has been a legal adult for 7 years. He doesn't need guardians. What he does need is for you to respect the fact that your parental rights were permanently terminated 15 years ago. Legally, you are strangers. Nicholas looked bewildered. But he's still our brother. Biologically, yes, Kessler said calmly. Legally, no. Thaddeus adopted Damien completely. You have no more rights to him than any stranger off the street. Darren's face flushed red. This is insane. What about the inheritance? Dad's his brother, he should get something. Kessler pulled out another paper. Thaddeus' will is crystal clear and legally binding. He left his entire estate to Damien. That includes this house, all financial assets, and personal property. The estate's value is approximately $5 million. The room went dead silent. My family stared at him like fish out of water. Dad's face turned purple. That's not fair. I'm his brother. Family should take care of family. You're absolutely right, I said, finally speaking up. Family should take care of family. Where were you when Uncle Thaddeus was fighting cancer? Where were you when I was driving him to chemotherapy, sitting by his bed, holding his hand in the hospital? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. We didn't know he was sick. You didn't know, I snapped, because you never called. Never wrote. Never cared enough to find out. You had 15 years to be family. You chose not to be. Kessler nodded approvingly, then looked at them. Would you like me to explain your legal options? Yes, I said firmly. He turned to my parents and brothers. You have no legal claim to this property or inheritance. None. Damien is under no obligation to share anything with you. If you continue to harass him or attempt to pressure him for money, we will pursue legal action for harassment and trespassing. Dad exploded, his face turning red. This is ridiculous. We're his family. We came here to help him. Kessler stayed perfectly calm. You came here the day after Thaddeus' funeral. After refusing to attend that funeral. Your timing speaks for itself. We need that money. Mom suddenly burst into tears. Our house is falling apart. Nicholas and Darren want to buy their own places. We can't afford it. You can't just let us suffer while Damien lives here with everything. That's not Damien's problem, Kessler replied firmly. And it certainly doesn't give you the right to invade his home and try to bully him into handing over money. Darren slammed his fist on the counter. This is unbelievable. We're not leaving. Yes, you are, Kessler said, his tone sharpening. Right now. If you refuse, they'll call the police immediately. You'll be removed for trespassing. For a moment, no one moved. My parents exchanged looks, their bravado crumbling. Nicholas muttered something under his breath. Finally, Dad let out a frustrated growl. Fine. But this isn't over. He grabbed his coat, and the rest of them followed. I watched through the window as they piled into the car and drove away, back to Kentucky, probably already scheming their next move. Thank you, I told Kessler once they were gone. You're welcome, he said. But I'm afraid this may not be the end. People get desperate when they think money is involved. He was right. Kessler was right. For the next month, my phone rang constantly. Every time it was a different number. They must have been using friends' phones, or cheap burners. The voicemails piled up. Mom begged me to forgive them, said they wanted to be a family again, cried about how guilty she felt for giving me up. Nicholas called saying he and his girlfriend wanted to get married but couldn't afford a house. Darren called saying he had a great business opportunity but just needed some startup money. Dad left long messages about how unfair life had been to him, how as Thaddeus' brother he deserved something. My wealthy father's words came to mind, the poor seek justice for themselves, while the rich seek power. Every message dripped with desperation. I saved them all, just like Kessler told me to. Texts 2 pages of guilt trips and sob stories. After a month of this, Kessler had enough evidence. He drafted and sent an official cease and desist letter. It was sharp and to the point. If they contacted me again, we would take them to court and file for a permanent restraining order. That finally did it. The calls stopped. For the first time since Uncle Thaddeus' funeral, the house was quiet again. Now I'm in college, studying to become a financial analyst just like Uncle Thaddeus once was. I'm still living in his house, though now it feels like my house. I haven't touched the inheritance money except for tuition and normal living expenses. Thaddeus taught me how to be smart with money, and I refuse to waste what he left me. Sometimes people ask if I feel guilty about not sharing the inheritance with my biological family. The answer is no. They made their choice 15 years ago when they decided I wasn't worth keeping. Uncle Thaddeus made his choice when he took me in, loved me, and gave me a real home. I think about him every day. He taught me that family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by who chooses to stand by you when life gets hard. He was my real family. And I was his. These days, I'm doing well in school and building a good life. I've made close friends. I'm dating a woman named Olivia, who's studying engineering. I told her everything about my parents, my brothers, Uncle Thaddeus, all of it. She looked me in the eyes and said she thought I did the right thing. That was enough for me. And finally, if you've listened this far, please tell me, what would you do?